History class nappers, we feel you. Remember Tom trying to hold up his eyelids with matchsticks? That was totally us in history lessons. Who's even interested in events that happened way before your birth? But there are people who absolutely nailed their history lessons. They aren't teachers, politicians, or boring historians. Any guessers? They're the game developers who created games based on true historical events. Surprising, right? Let's show you some games inspired by history. The first game we have on our list is Brothers in Arms, Road to Hill 30. Now that we think about it, every other game is based on the Second World War. Call of Duty, Company of Heroes, and Medal of Honor all were inspired by the events of World War II. But there's a game that went extra lengths to depict true events, and that's Road to Hill 30. It's based on the story of the 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division, who dropped behind German lines on D-Day. Using a traumatizing event to create a game that later sold 1.7 million copies in 2005? Crazy, yet smart. Next, you live a spy's life in Velvet Assassin. This game from Replay Studios gives you a chance to live the life of a British spy named Violet Summer, who has to carry out missions like blowing up a fuel depot, assassinating a colonel, and stealing official documents. Well, Violet was an actual secret agent with the name Violet Szabo. She was pretty badass, but didn't get a happy ending because the German army captured her. Later, she was deported to Ravensbrück concentration camp, which turned out to be her deathbed. Yikes. If you want to learn history, there's no better place than Assassin's Creed. No offense to teachers, but Assassin's Creed has so many iconic historical personalities and events that may help you pass your school history test. You'll meet Leonardo da Vinci, Pope Alexander VI, and the pirate Blackbeard in it. They even showed a young Arthur Conan Doyle stopping a burglary. Speaking of events, honestly, we've lost count. There's the 1755 Lisbon earthquake, the Plague of Athens, the Battle of Chippenham, the Borgia Papacy, and honestly, these are just the tip of the iceberg. Assassin Connor made a cameo in so many of these events that it actually became an inside joke for gamers. Then there's 979 Revolution, Black Friday. Based on the Iranian Revolution, the game shows an aspiring photojournalist named Reza Shirazi who returned to his country during the revolution. The more photographs players take as Reza Shirazi, the more historical information they're presented with. They can also listen to personal accounts from people who lived through the revolution through the game. The Iranian Revolution is one of the most important historical changes in the modern history of Iran and the Middle East. The game's creator, Navid Konsari, grew up in Iran during the revolution, and that's how his inspiration came. Now that's one smart attempt to make kids aware of their own country's history. 10 out of 10 for the idea. Up next, we have L.A. Noire. It gives you a chance to be in the shoes of a detective named Cole Phelps, who returns home after World War II and solves crimes that make headlines. One of the most popular cases that you'll get to solve as the detective is the Black Dahlia murder. If you know anything about it, an American woman was brutally bisected into two pieces. While the case remains unsolved in reality, mystery buffs can test their detective skills to crack the case in the game. What sets this game apart is that Team Bondi created L.A. Noire after seeing actual photos and city planning documents from the 1940s and 1950s. A+ for the effort by the team. Thought you had enough of World War II games? There's another, The Saboteur. Sean Devlin is an Irish race car mechanic who helps the Resistance's effort in sabotaging the Nazis. The character is inspired by the life of William Grover, who's a half-English and half-French Grand Prix champion. William fled France when the war began, and later on, he was recruited by the British SOE, who sent him back to France as a spy. Sounds like a person torn between two countries. He died serving his country. A fun fact about the game, Pandemic Studios, the creator of this game, liquidated when the game was completed. For this reason, people call this game the developer's swan song, but we see it as a game that lived up to its name. Next on our list is Valiant Hearts, The Great War. If you thought there was no escape to World War II games, there is. Let's talk about a game based on the First World War instead. We've got you. Valiant Hearts, The Great War walks you through the real events from the First World War. The game shows a war-torn 1914 when Germany declared war on Russia and France deported German citizens. Players can choose between four characters: a Frenchman named Emile, his German son-in-law Karl, an American soldier named Freddy, and a Belgian nurse named Anna. Many accounts told in this game are real-life stories, and all battles in this game are real. The game even features actual war photos. Warriors. Get a dose of Chinese history in Dynasty Warriors 2. The first few Dynasty Warriors were based on a 14th century historical Chinese novel called Romance of the Three Kingdoms. This novel tells in detail the events that happened in China between the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. Also, this was the time when several warring tribes were fighting to unify China. Now, a game that's not obsessed with world wars. That Dragon Cancer. And even though this game isn't obsessed with the world wars, it might be sadder than them. That Dragon Cancer is based on Ryan and Amy Green's life, and it focuses on them losing a child to cancer. When their child was only 12 months old, he was diagnosed with an atypical teratoid rhabdoid tumor that left him only 4 months to live. The game wanted to deliver the pain the Greens felt during that difficult time. Want to know a shocking detail about this game? Ryan Green and Amy Green are the designer and writers of this game, respectively. It's smart if you ask us. Games are engaging, and that's why they chose this medium to tell their story. Our hearts break thinking about how many times they must have broken down while developing this game. Up next, we have Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper. We can't tell you the number of times that we've thought to ourselves that if Sherlock Holmes were real, Jack the Ripper would have had no chance. This could be one of the thoughts the creators had when they were developing Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper. This 2009 game shows Sherlock Holmes chasing the infamous killer. Sherlock Holmes might have cracked the case in the game, but in the real world, no one could catch Jack the Ripper to this day. And now, he's just become the #1 topic to make games and movies on. Not gonna lie, mixing real life with fictional characters is our favorite genre. Finally, a break from shooting and mysteries. Papers, Please. Papers, Please is inspired by the latter parts of the Cold War and focuses on the tensions at the Berlin Wall. The game is simple. You'll just have to check the passports and documents of people before letting them in the country. The only difficulty is the workload, which increases after you make progress in the game. Never played an insensitive shooting game? Here's JFK Reloaded for you. We aren't sure why the developers thought that we wanted to be the assassin of the 35th president of the United States, because this is what the game's about. Players get to play as Lee Harvey Oswald, the real-life assassinator of President John F. Kennedy. And they even got points if they hit the president in the exact spot as the assassin did. Whoa, we can't even count the number of lines this game crossed, and that's why it was taken off the shelves by its developers. The developers' only hope is that the Americans forget about the assassination so that they can release their game peacefully. The last game we have is Blackwater. We've got to give it to Zombie Studios for going bold, because they made a game on a controversial military company named Blackwater. Blackwater gives players a chance to gun down enemies in a fictional African country. The game was released 4 years after the real Blackwater was convicted of the murder of 14 Iraqi civilians in Nisour Square, Baghdad. If you're wondering what happened to the real-life Blackwater after that, here's your answer. That barbaric company still exists, but it's rebranded itself twice. In 2009, it became XE Services, and later on, it became Academy in 2011, and hasn't been rebranded since. So guys, getting straight A's in history doesn't mean that you have no life or you've got a crush on your history teacher. Take it from these games which earned millions just by having their facts straight. Pretty sure if we ever make a game inspired by our course books, it'll be to run as far as possible from the country when there's a differential equation nearby. And that's a wrap for this video. So what do you think about these games inspired by real events? Have you played any of them? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and click that subscribe button to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.